Today, in the Master of Crafts program, artisan pens for true connoisseurs made by a clever Ukrainian craftsman, Mammoth tusks, millennial wood, and Damascus steel as materials for creating unique writing tools. Where in the world are Ukrainian pens appreciated, and why is this craft only gaining momentum in the 21st century? UATV explores the culture of valuable gifts that has become an art. What kind of luxury could only czars and emperors afford in ancient times? Besides constructing palaces and tombs, they collected and used knowledge. In the 7th century BC, Assyrian king Ashurbanipal gathered the first ever library, or rather a huge store of clay tablets. Clay was an available material then, as well as kalam, a special writing stick made of reed rods. But the actual luxury was that Ashurbanipal could afford education and became the only ruler of his state who could read and write. One of his records is preserved. "I mastered the secret art of writing on tablets, began to understand the predictions in the sky and on earth, participated in the discussions of learned men, and predicted the future together with the most experienced interpreters. I am also able to solve difficult complex division and multiplication tasks." But his library became invaluable in our days as one of the main sources of knowledge about the history of the Middle East. A few hundred years later, the famous Alexandria Library appeared, in which tens of thousands of papyrus scrolls were collected. This writing material was much more convenient than tablets, though at the same time more expensive. For instance, a monthly salary of a judge in ancient Athens was enough to buy only 12 papyrus sheets. In our day and age, gathering and using the knowledge accumulated over centuries made it easier than ever, not to mention that cheap paper and writing tools are not required for that. However, it was after the creation of digital libraries that people began to attach great importance to office supplies, from branded notebooks and diaries to especially high-quality and even precious pens. It is through this rethinking of writing tools that modern craftsmen can create masterpieces based on simple things. In the era of virtual reality and entertainment and the introduction of cryptocurrencies, physical items are becoming more and more valuable. I make various beautiful writing pens. I make all kinds of accessories for men in particular. For example, shaving brushes and razors. I'm also starting to work with men's rings from all kinds of materials. Yaroslav Kaminskiy is now experimenting with different gift items, but his main passion is the creation of unique artisan pens. The skills of this Ukrainian were recognized around the world several years ago. One of my works is in the collection of the International Association of Pens, 2 even. I could not choose what to make for them for the association collection, so they told me to make 2. Why did a musician and IT analyst start making author's pens? Which of his works won Yaroslav Kaminskiy an international contest among craftsmen? And how does the Ukrainian work with ancient materials? All about that next in this episode. This is Yaroslav Kaminskiy at the very beginning of 2014. He's performing a song based on the famous Testament by Taras Shevchenko on a mouth harp. Yaroslav had been making exotic musical instruments and playing them for about 10 years. I made flutes and didgeridoos, native Australian instruments. I have been playing the mouth harp for a long time. I've tried playing all kinds of them from every country. I participated in organizing and holding international festivals. Few people played these instruments in Ukraine, and mouth harps and didgeridoos were not very popular at the time. So Yaroslav worked in IT analytics and spent his leisure time playing with his band, but the events of 2014 put an end to the musical ambitions of the band. I play by myself, there is no band. Our girl left to the east of Ukraine as a medical volunteer and spent a couple of years at the front pulling our wounded soldiers out of the trenches, so her life has changed completely. And our band then consisted of 3 people, but something didn't feel right without one of the members. Shortly before those events, Yaroslav took a break from his office work and decided to distract himself with some kind of hobby. He did not intend to find a new job and make money using his creativity. I bought a set of tools for my birthday so that I could have some fun in the small workshop that I had arranged in the pantry at home. I started making pens to take a break from the daily humdrum of the office job. I got so much into it that I invested all of my savings into buying materials, accessories, spare parts, and the necessary tools. He spent hundreds of hours on thematic forums, reading theory and watching videos that offered practical advice. Just 6 months later, Yaroslav took part in the competition of the International Association of Pen Craftsmen and won in one of the nominations. A year later, he dared to compete for the grand prize together with his colleagues who had been working in this field for 10 to 15 years. It was a true challenge for me to make something I had never made before, something that was very difficult for me. And when I came up with the most difficult work, this pen appeared. I spent 2 weeks making it. How it is done. The pen designed by Yaroslav for the international competition can still impress many craftsmen with its ambitious idea. That is due to the fact that it is made of titanium and Damascus steel. It is a heterogeneous alloy that has been known in various forms for almost 1,500 years. Cold steel arms and other products from Damascus steel are very much appreciated now, as they require exceptionally fine handiwork by craftsmen. A working piece can easily be ruined. Almost none of my Western colleagues work with such materials. Only the tip and the feeder, this black part, are German parts. I made everything else by hand on a machine, having no experience with metalworking machines whatsoever. That is, I did not study this craft anywhere. After a week of hard work, Yaroslav finished the pen and submitted it for the contest. Craftsmen themselves vote on the website of the International Association, and they highly praised the snake-scale stylization of Damascus steel in combination with anodized titanium. The Ukrainian managed to win the grand prize, and since then he has taken care of his pen as a talisman. Yaroslav prefers to work with materials that are warmer and more alive. For example, with 1,000-year-old wood. Ukrainian oak that spent 2,000 years underwater, buried under mud and rivers. It's a very interesting material, which is especially valuable. It is basically a tree that fell into a river 1,000 to 3,000 years ago. Oak, which is light wood, darkens in the water by interacting with iron. The more time it spends there, the darker it gets. From 1,000 years and on, it becomes almost black. In Ukraine, only a few people gather and process such oak. Yaroslav says that from a single log found in a former riverbed, 1/10 of the material at most is usable. It has its own energy. I can feel it somehow. It is also interesting for me because it's our material, and it's always pleasant to work with it. It is very rare, unlike some ordinary ash that anyone can get. Yaroslav admits that it is very difficult to work with hardened oak. It can easily crack, and creating a workpiece for a pen requires very fine manipulation. Therefore, the craftsman uses stabilized wood. That is, he impregnated it with a special resin in a vacuum. At the same time, Yaroslav does not cover the oak with lacquer for protection from human hands purely on principle. Spots of grease and sweat. Human bodily expressions are fairly aggressive. They make certain wood species change their color, for example. Fair wood will look dirty, but hardened oak becomes even richer, more interesting, more beautiful, and very deep. I leave it with open pores for that reason, and don't varnish it purely on principle. I only open the pores up, and I reveal the texture of this living wood as much as possible. The rest of the pen is made of brass, covered with black chrome, while the clip is made of steel. Yaroslav deliberately created a muted, minimalistic model, focusing on the easy-to-use principle. There's a ballpoint inside instead of a feather. The craftsman says that this pen is very popular among his other works, even though he does not like repeating exactly the same thing, trying to add something new every time. But there is an even rarer material in Yaroslav's collection for the most valuable pens.
таких сложных работ была эта ручка из бивня мамонта.
One of the most difficult works was the pen made of mammoth tusk that is 40 to 50,000 years old. This little piece is a gift from a geological expedition from the north, from the 1970s or 1980s. I got this one from collectors. I had to haggle for quite a while with this one.
У коллекционеров долго и нудно торговался.
Why has Yaroslav not yet made at least a dozen pens, having such an abundance of rare materials? The Ukrainian craftsman is afraid to lose a workpiece due to invisible cracks.
Они даже могут быть скрытые микротрещины, даже если идеальный кусок.
There might be invisible micro cracks, even in a perfect and very expensive piece of material. A small crack is negligible in a large product if it's tiny and very thin.
Вот. А в ручке толщина.
But the walls in a pen are 1 to 2 millimeters thick. Even if the tiniest crack appears, the pen can crumple. It was so hard to work on that, so for the time being, I've limited myself to working on just one for now.
Как бы пока остановился на одной.
The light parts in this pen are the mammoth tusk, and the dark ones are impregnated with resin, which requires 24 hours of exposure to fill all the cracks. Next, a special varnish was needed to protect the soft material from moisture and temperature changes. The whole process took a month and a half. The Ukrainian craftsman also uses resin in combination with wood, like in this pen with maritime themes.
А сам корпус сделан из сочетания двух материалов. Это натуральное дерево.
The body itself is made of a combination of two materials, a natural tree and a maple cap. The edge of it, to be precise, which is very uneven on its own. A cap is a beautiful pattern on wood, and the rest of it, the yellow part, is a cap. The blue one is resin with the addition of pearlescent pigments. The idea is that it's a piece of land, or a sandy island, or a seashore. Yaroslav especially likes the fact that it is impossible to make two identical pens from wood, even if you try hard, because each fragment is unique. It is possible to impregnate the same maple in different ways with resin and dyes and obtain new color combinations. We're living in the age of technological development, when there is no just one resin and dye, but two resins and many different dyes. There are the reddish and blue-violet ones, and they spread differently in different fibers, though the light color of wood itself also remains, which creates a wide color gamut.
Распространяется по разным волокнам, остается еще немножечко иногда светлый цвет самого дерева, получается, гамма тут большая.
The Ukrainian craftsman is often attracted to plant components. Thus, this pen is made of resin-impregnated lufa, aggressive iron. It is often used for the production of natural sponges. In the hands of Yaroslav, the lufa helped create an incredible volumetric effect on the body.
Если присматриваться, то
if you take a closer look, it's as if the structure is going deeper inside. This volume is very fascinating, and you can spend forever watching how it intertwines. It looks like how astronomers visualize the structure of space, the thin intergalactic lines that connect the galaxies together.
Вот эти вот тонкие линии, которые связывают между собой там галактики.
Today, Yaroslav Kaminskiy works with hundreds of various materials, finding unusual combinations. He uses the same technique he uses to create razors and shaving brushes. The works of the Ukrainian craftsmen have spread all over the world over 5 years.
Сейчас большая часть все-таки расходится в Украине. Но тем не менее,
now, most of my pens are being sold in Ukraine, but I had orders for pens from the United Arab Emirates and South Africa. Also, some orders came from Western European countries and Singapore. Some of my works are in the US in private collections, but those are my most intricate works, not the simplest ones.
Не самые мои простенькие, серьезные работы.
Modern fountain pens were invented in the US at the end of the 19th century, so the culture of these writing implements is mostly American and to a lesser extent European. Thanks to the hobby of Yaroslav Kaminskiy, Ukraine has also appeared on the world map of artisan pens.
Я на самом деле занимаюсь всего 5 лет, и это
I've only been doing this for 5 years, which is not that much compared to some of my American colleagues.
Но я занимаюсь full-time.
But I do it full-time, from morning till night.
С ранку до ночи. То есть я могу из мореного дуба уже делать такие вещи,
I can make such things from hardened oak now, which I wouldn't have even thought were possible 5 years ago. That is something that nobody else in the world made. It's all about the craftsman. People buy the name of the craftsman, their effort, soul, and experience.
Его душу, его опыт,